Hey folks, Chris McLean back with yet another episode. And on the show today, I've got Vix from Agency 6B. And they're a boutique full service advertising agency and content production company founded in the Upper East Side of Manhattan and now proudly operating out of Jersey City in New Jersey. And since its inception, the agency supported small and medium sized businesses, startups, global and national corporations, Fortune 500 companies, legacy brands, and global nonprofits in strategic end-to-end solutions for brand awareness, customer acquisition, and business development. Vix, great to have you here. Sounds like you've serviced everyone and anyone from all sorts of types and sizes of businesses all over the place. Thank you so much for dropping by this evening.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Tune in all the way from Jersey City in Jersey, as we are saying sort of off camera, that lovely part of the world to be in and be based out of.
It is, and it's actually, this is my favorite time. I don't know if anyone who's watching was as big of a You've Got Mail fan as I am, but this is literally when New York smells like bouquets of pencils. I love New York in the fall. I mean, I love New York all the time, but I love it in the fall.
Yeah. So yeah, because literally the opposite to us. We're just coming out of
100%.
winter and hopefully transitioning into a nice spring. And you're sort of heading the other way into that lovely fall season and white Christmas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm over it.
I'm over it. Yeah, I'm over it. And so snow time is always lovely to watch in the movies, but when you got to shovel it off the car every day, it's annoying as hell.
Exactly.
The reality doesn't map to the dream story so much.
Never. But we sell the dream, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's our jobs as marketers, and New York's definitely been very, very well marketed over the years. So with that as a good lead in, so take us into Agency 6B. How did this all come about for you? You founded the company in Manhattan, and then you moved out to Jersey?
Yeah, so New Jersey actually has some really great tax credits for production companies. And I started as a journalist. I started as a television producer. I then moved to an agency, and I had this whole like storytelling perspective, right, on it. And I had always operated in kind of a pod model. And for me, it was really about like a deeper understanding of what's the story we're trying to tell, how do we want to tell it, and then who are we telling it to. So when I was about 27, I decided to start taking on more freelance stuff, and in 6 weeks I had matched my six-figure salary, and I started Agency 6B. Was not called that back then, but as I am a stickler for the branding, we're going to stick with Agency 6B because that is what it is now. So when I built the business, I focused on providing solutions, and that's what we do to this very day. My real name is Victoria, but my parents like are not that cool. But everybody, they're not the ones who named me Vix. But everybody used to say, "Well, you've got the fix. You've always got that thing that makes it work." And it's a New Yorker trait, right? I've got a guy for everything, and that's what I do. Is you come to me with a problem. I get clients. I can't get customers. I can't get people to convert. I can't get the systems in my business to talk to each other. So I have high level data to see where we're actually selling things. I don't know where people are coming from on our website. Our website doesn't show any traffic. We're not selling anything on our e-commerce solution, or we don't even have an e-commerce solution. So the way that I like to say it is, we take businesses and we manage from the moment the client discovers you to the moment they renew with you. So we build websites, we build full end-to-end strategies, we do shoots, we do influencer marketing, we do paid media. And what makes the company so special is every single service that we provide is something I am an expert in and can execute on. And what's so exciting about Jersey City is that we also have behind this wall a production studio that I built from scratch based on the experiences I had in TV. Yeah, which was something that I never thought would come together this quickly. And we're going to open an office in Miami next fall. And it's been a wild ride. So I've worked with the United Nations. I've consulted for SoulCycle. I've consulted. I consulted for Harry Winston's social team. We are the agency of record for Tommy Bahama Spirits. I work with small businesses, right? I work with med spas. I work with lawyers, doctors, heavily regulated industries. And at the end of the day, every business needs leads, a deeper understanding of where the leads are going and what they're doing, and then how to read that data to make smart business decisions that help them grow.
Mm. Amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
So you talk about having that, you are the expert across that kind of fleet of product and service in your business. How did you develop that skill set? Because that's a pretty
Wide.
very, very broad skill set to have. Was that literally you bought stuff in and figured it out? Was it professional level training? Was it Googling shit and going, okay, I got to work this thing out, so just jump over here and figure it out? How did you develop that multi-talented skill set?
Yeah, so I like to say that I'm an expert generalist and I hire expert generalists. So obviously now I have a team of account managers and we operate in a pod agency model because I was a tech trade reporter at one point in my very short / wide ranging career before I became an entrepreneur. So a lot of it I learned at the highest levels of the industry. I was a digital producer at ABC, NBC Telepictures. And what was so interesting was that I was always on the publisher side. Well, really the editorial side, right? So I had a chance, the creative side, but I had a deeper understanding of what was happening on the ad side. So for me, like I buy media, right? So I'll buy placements on TV stations. I buy billboards. I do all traditional media buys. And those buys do better for my clients than past buys they've had, because I don't just know, oh yeah, we're going to get this many views and this is guaranteed in this demographic. I know what's coming on before. I know what the producers are thinking. I know what the Nielsen rating really means. Really, a lot of it was I just kept sitting on the same side of the table with different people. So my internship, when I was still an undergrad, I worked for This Old House magazine, and then they came back to me as a client, and they were in Time Inc., like on 6th Avenue, like big deal, right, in Time and Life building. And I actually started my internship there in 2008, the day that Lehman Brothers closed. So that was like a whole life-shattering like start to this career. I was like, wait, what's happening? And I have a print journalism degree, so I think that that's even more interesting. Like everything was literally up in flames, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. So when I was there, I had done research, came up with a contest. The publisher sold it against 500,000 in advertising spend for traffic and all this other stuff. So I had the ability to learn, and I'm somebody who understands it as a story, right? Like to me, it really is the beginning, the middle, and the end. What do you want the outcome to be? And then how do we get there on multiple trajectories? I have done a lot of research. I like to study organizational psychologists because I think that the way people think is fascinating to me. And to me, as an advertiser, as a marketer, it's really our job to consider, how do we make people do what we want? How do we move them to do what we want, right? What motivates people? So if I could go back, I would totally go and learn, like I would take I think psychology degrees are what all marketers should have, because it's so fascinating the way that we can, make people do things. And I'm really into data, which I know is not the creative person mindset. It's usually different brain space. But the data tells me a story, right? And I think that if people are exposed to it, so I try to expose all my team members to, like, this is the strategy. This is why we do what we do. This is why we test this. I asked a lot of questions. Not everybody liked that. But the team that I have built and the team I operate and continue to build, I encourage that, right? I do sales trainings. I do all these things with my team because I want them to feel comfortable talking about these things, even if it's not their area of expertise or their area of genius.
Yeah, I mean, that approach. There's no stupid questions, right? As long as you're asking questions, you're going to get answers, and there's progress in that. There's learning. There's moving forward by asking, even if it's a stupid question. Somebody else probably has that same question. They're just a lot of the time not willing to say it. So,
and journalists, like, I think that was what made me so good at this, right? Like, as a journalist, I had a professor who once said to me right before I graduated, if you're not making people mad, you're not doing your job. So I have always had that attitude of like, well, of course I have to ask questions. Like, it's my job. So I think that whereas some people would be afraid, like, oh, if I ask questions, I'm not gonna, they're gonna think I don't know what I'm talking about. To me, it's like, okay, well, educate me, sell me. So a lot of times I even have our clients, when they do their kickoff, I'm like, okay, so tell me about your business. They're like, didn't you do the research? I'm like, of course I did, but I want to hear you tell me about it.
Yeah. How well do you know your business?
And also, how do you present it, right? People, we're always in
Mm.
it. Like, I know I like fresh eyes on Agency 6B stuff because
Yeah.
everybody, no matter how good you are, no matter how long you've been doing it, everybody who's in something has a hard time seeing the full picture and the potholes. So I
Yeah.
like to put a different lens on it when we can.
Yeah, as they had to see the forest for the trees sometimes
Yes.
when you're in the thing, and particularly as agency owners, and I client side is exactly the same. When it's your baby, your thing, you can the blink, you can be very very blinkered to the reality a lot of the time, which is where that combination of agency, of an external perspective coming in and said kind of finding the holes in the business or in the strategy or in the approach or in the messaging, whatever that is, that sort of insight combined with, as you're saying, with that creative use of data. And I think that was interesting. You sort of see data as not necessarily a creative mechanism, but I think with a creative mind approaching that data, you utilize data in a creative way, because it really does give you that it's data into the human psychology. It's like, what are people actually doing when and that's sort of been the interesting shift for me to see, because I founded my agency in 2002,
Yeah.
way back when, before data was data, and it was the creative director, like, this is the ad, this is
Right.
the thing that's going to. You talked about billboard and traditional, and like, this is the TV campaign, this is the billboard that's going to run for the next 6 months, and this is what I believe it should be. And that's very different to today, where it's like, well, let's just do 50 different things and iterate it and see what the market decides is the thing. What is the creative, right? So it's a very
Right.
different mindset these days.
And I think sometimes, you know, I do a lot by feel, right? So I was
Mm,
just having a conversation with a client today, and we were talking about a launch for an e-com site, and it's liquor,
mm,
which is heavily regulated in the US,
mm,
like
mm.
crazy pants.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, my gut is saying this, right? And I always trust my gut, because being a business owner is about building yourself. And the only thing you can trust, I call it the Mufasa voice for Lion King fans out there. It's that like voice where it's like, you have the power, you know what you're doing, right? Like you said, Chris, that creative director voice where it's like, yeah, like, this is it. This is what we're doing. So, I think to some degree, that can sometimes skew that, because we are special creative people, right? Like, I think that got lost. That's why I started my agency, and that's why I call it Built to Disrupt. Like, that's our nickname, that's our tagline, because to me, I want to disrupt everything that people think about a creative person. I want to disrupt everything people think about, like, young women, young people, people with tattoos, people with nose rings. Like, people still have such an idea of what a creative should be, that I often enjoy, like, kind of visually myself sharing a different interpretation of that.
Mm,
But
mm,
but I think that, when you can take what you know in your gut to be true, and that's really what I did here. I was like, look, I want something in my back pocket, because the data says that this is going to be the thing, but I know in my gut that we're probably going to do better here. And then when you have the data, I call it a yay me folder. And it's not just for data, it's for testimonials and all the things. But it's like, yep, that's right. That's your reminder of, you knew what it was going to be.
mm.
Or it's like, okay, yes, you had this inkling. So maybe put two more things in your back pocket. And I think that is always a good model. The other thing, too, is like, from 2002 to now, I mean, people's attention spans, I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, I would love your thoughts. Like, in the last year, I feel like consumers are, we always talk about consumer fatigue, right? And creative fatigue. But I feel like more than ever before, we're having to switch it up a lot faster. Like, I like working on quarters. 6 months, I think, is a little long these days. But yeah, I'm usually like, okay, here's our 90-day campaign. Like, we'll have a few pop ins, but
Mm,
overall, this is our messaging. And now we're talking to 3, 6 different personas at once, and just trying to serve them up like, hey, look over here, but also keeping track of that. Like, that's why I love sales and marketing automation tools internally, and then also helping our clients like streamline externally.
mm, mm. Yeah, no, you bang on. There's literally an almost clinical condition now called, they call attention deficit trait, or ADT. And it's literally,
Yeah.
it's the overwhelm of so much information.
Yep.
He said like in the last 20 years, like even 2002, we were overwhelmed with TV and radio and messaging and magazine and the internet. That we were already overwhelmed. Now it's exponentially more. He said, and literally attention spans are literally just shorter because people are in Google mode, right? You search and you get the thing and you move on. Whereas in my day, you'd go to the library and you'd check out a book and you had to read the whole book to find the thing about
Before you get
the
the
dinosaur that you're doing the project on, right? So it was a deeper search mode. It was a deeper mentality. We had to actually go and do work to find stuff out. Whereas today I Google it and I've got it and it's instant. And that's just the expectation now, right? That if I want something, it's there and I can get it in my second brain on my phone instantaneously. And that goes across to everything. So everything is much more fleeting. And yeah, exactly. And the media landscape has shifted so much that I've got not just Instagram and not just Facebook and not just LinkedIn and TikTok, but don't just have platforms. I've got almost sub platforms inside those things. I've got Reels and I've got TikTok and I've got Shorts and I've got full length video and image and content. And there's so much content. Sorry?
GIFs and stickers too.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much stuff that's just begging for my attention that finding space in the day is so difficult. So yeah, it's a very, very, very different landscape, and getting somebody's attention within that sea of overwhelm is a very, very different skill set to have than it was even, particularly 20 years ago, but 5-10 years ago, and even last 18 months to 2 years now that everyone's even more isolated, we're even more, focused on these things. So yeah, attention span is very, 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 very short. So what do you think the solution for that is? How do you capture attention in that 3 seconds or 1/10 of a second that you've got to pull someone out of a news feed and go like, this is the thing I'm going to spend a bit of time watching?
So I think that I always say it takes 21 days to form a habit, 90 days to form a lifestyle, right? Like that's like pretty common psychology stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to me, I want my brands to be part of the lifestyle of their content personas, right? Of their ideal customers. So one of the things that I did when I built the agency was what I call the state of the Vix. I used to call it the state of your union, but as we grow and our businesses grow, we got to brand everything because if it ain't branded, it's not yours. So the state of the Vix is essentially the sales funnel. It's how do people know, like, and trust you, right? But what I did for my own people was that I divided them into people who can hire you, people who know people who can hire you, and people who can promote you. So now I take that and I do that with my clients, because one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is, we want to capture new eyes. We want to get them at the top of that awareness and interest and drive them all the way down through, right? And then funnel them back and get them to be our brand ambassadors, if you will, or even just our evangelists. But at the end of the day, you've got millions hiding in your list. And I think so many people underestimate the power of what they already have, because like we said, consumers are always looking for the next best thing. But so are business owners, because business owners and brands and C-suite executives are people. So I think that it's twofold. One, recognizing that the people who are making the decisions, the stakeholders, are humans who are overstimulated too. And recognizing that if you see your consumer as a human and you treat them as humans, you may actually get even better reactions and responses, because you're not focused on that 3-second view. You're looking at the 3-year game with them, right? You're looking at the long game. So I think that it's accumulation of all of the interactions, all of the touch points. That's why I say from the moment they discover you to the moment they renew with you, rather than quick hits of success. Like I think that you need those, need that on the chart, right? If we're talking about the chart and the story and the graphs and the data. But at the end of the day, you also have to make sure that you're getting people to just continue to stay with you. So like I just recently ran a Facebook ads campaign and we had no churn. I thought I did something wrong, because that's what we think, right? We're like, wait, it's working so well that it's working. And luckily it was a client with whom I have a really good relationship, because I was like, I think I broke it. And they were like, no. I was like, no, wait, confirmed, not broken. just really good. So, I think that if you can, and what we did there was we took their key products and we made them into like people. We personified it because you can connect. So that's where I think my skill set of leading with humanity, because that's what journalism was supposed to be, uh, really gives my clients like a totally different experience and helps the brands we work with just flourish in a totally different way. And that's what it is. You have to stand out. And maybe you're standing out because you're creating so much content, but I think that the volume is going to turn off, if you will. And eventually we'll see that, yeah, sure, there's a lot of things to take your attention, but what really keeps your attention for the long haul are the brands that last. I mean, think about Band-Aid, right? Like Uber's a perfect example. We always talk about ride share. Okay, but nobody says share. Nobody says taxi anymore. People even, I mean, I'm sure at different parts of the world, it's a different experience. Like I've done some marketing, obviously, all over the world, but one of the campaigns I was running for the UM featured a lot of, APAC marketing, and it's all chat apps. It's like totally different, right? So every consumer in every market operates in a different way.
Yeah.
But in general, like we're kind of all talking about the same thing, and they've become, I want to become the word you use to describe the thing. That's my goal. But I think that, I want people to say like, oh yeah, you want to do something different? That's who you go to. So, and I'm sure I know a lot of my clients want that. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to that want their agency to have that kind of legacy. So I just think that, it is about the long haul. It's really hard to see that though, when you're looking at profits and quarters and all those things.
Yeah. I think that is an amazing and very, very important insight, that amidst that immediate attention, instant gratification world, the long game still always wins.
Always,
and the agencies and the businesses that cannot really understand. I mean, because that is fundamentally, foundationally business. But I think that these fundamental foundational principles can get lost in this. Is a shiny object, instant gratification. This campaign's been running for a week and I haven't made $1 million yet, so I'll switch it off because it's not working. Right. There's because of the amount of distraction and the attention deficit and notifications and ping. We're so busy all the time that's how we think and we operate that way. So we think there's a tendency to think that is reality, but that's actually not reality. Reality is a long game, right? It's still a long haul game. Exactly. So that ability to step back and go, okay, what's the long game? How can I get these little, as you said, these little moments of interaction that build up over time to build a lifestyle, so that when people think of the thing, they don't say, I'm going to go do an internet search. They say, I'm going to Google it. Right. I'm not going to go order me a ride share, get me an Uber.
Right.
That's lifestyle, as you were saying, and that is long-term play where people identify that thing with a brand.
Yeah.
So, so in terms of, you've obviously got a very strong brand and a very strong personality. In terms of leading your own marketing in your team, and your do you tend to map your personal brand and your business brand distinctly, or is it all one thing?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it kind of was everything, right? And we've been a little quiet because we're doing a lot of things, and I have redone our brand. That's the other hard part, right? When you do the thing, you get a little picky. So you want it to be a certain way, and when I can see it and hear what it's supposed to be. So I used to kind of mix it much more together. But the reality is, if you really want to scale, it can't just be you. It has to be you through others. So that's where branding different things came into play. Like I have all these different methodologies, which I was always using, and teaching, right? But now it's very clear. It's like, okay, well, yeah, Vix runs this. This is the play we run. So I look at it as I'm the coach and I guide us, but there's like something great, right? You could have the most incredible, for a football analogy, you could have the most incredible quarterback who's like, no, we're going to run the play this way. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. So to me, that's how I look at it. I look at it, Agency 6B, creative collective, the Vix Reitano brand, solution-focused, holistic, healing, mindfulness focus. Because to me, like mental health is like super important. that's the vibe, right? Like witchy, intuitive success over there. And then I really talk to my grounded, like business minded people through Agency 6B. But we still have like girly colors because why not?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to see that interplay between your CEO or founder personal brand and how that interacts with the business brand or the agency brand. Because there's much more. I think when there is a synergy, there can be a distinction, but synergy between those two things. Really interesting from a branding perspective, but also from a business, an agency owner, a business owner perspective. When your values and the business values are aligned, that's a winning solution rather than the other way around, when the business is kind of one thing and one set of values and your personal values are something completely different. That's a weird situation to be in.
And I think a lot of people don't put their heart into it, right? Like they say it's their baby, but like vulnerability is your superpower to me. So like, even just from a colors perspective, like one color is on both brand kits, right? So it's like that's a simple, quick way. I'm very visual. So I like a visual thing. Like people, purple is my favorite color. So like purple is in all our branding, and people know, they're like, yeah, that's her thing. That's her thing. So my French bulldog, like you see my pillow, like she's everywhere in the office. So, and she usually is literally in the office because we have a dog in the office. We have a dog friendly office. So that's, to me, it's about, if an agency owner really wants to stand out, you have to kind of pull back the curtain. I always say I'm the most public private person you'll ever know, because I am pretty private, but if you look at my social and like Google me, you'd never think that. It's just that I decide what story I'm telling, right? So there's still there's a person behind that brand. So I think that's the key and the most important thing for all of our clients.
Yeah, I think that important when you said there's also important to understand those boundaries, right? Like how much of me am I willing to put away, to put up front as a personal brand. And it can go too far sometimes, and there can be too much of me and too much insight, or sometimes not enough. So finding that balance between how much of myself and my family and my kids and all that, what's relevant, right? What's relevant to share? What are people actually going to engage with?
And I think female business owners have to share a little bit more. I don't know why. I just think we do. I think it's like pushed. Like women are always talking about, oh, my mama, which is great. Like I talk a lot about, I don't have any kids yet, but I talk a lot about life and business and balance. And I think women are often asked those questions, whereas I don't think men are asked those questions as often. I think they should be, but I think that, I think the default is to ask women and to not necessarily ask men. Like, we should ask men, so how do you do bath time, right? Like we should ask those questions. So I try to do that whenever I have the opportunity.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's still some gender roles playing out in the reality of social media. But I think again that distinction, and where do you is bath time something that is on your social media feed, or is that sacred, right? Is that's my life, but I'm happy to share me working out or what I made for dinner, or like maybe that's relevant somehow. So I think having those borders and those boundaries is super important as well. And
absolutely
understanding how that's going to impact the business as well, right? If that vulnerability impacts the business positively, go for it. If it doesn't work with the business, maybe you got to reconsider it. So and it's always a shifting landscape too. So really interesting to understand. That into branding, that just the blending of who I am as an individual and who I am as a business owner, and putting that up through all these different channels. Seems to be something that you do very, very well. If people do want to find out more about you, Vix, and connect with you, find out more about you, work with you, all that good stuff, where can they come and find you?
agency6b.com, facebook.com/agency6b, instagram.com/agency6b, and then my LinkedIn. If you just Google Vix Reitano, I'll come up. I'm pretty much the only Vix Reitano. There are Vixs of other sorts, brands, but that's me. Yeah, so I would love to connect. I usually, when I am playing, I'm on Instagram. When I'm engaging on that field, I'm either on Instagram or Facebook. I do some thought leadership on LinkedIn, but that's where I like to play.
Awesome. And as always, I'll drop those links in the show notes so you can click on those and go get connected and find out all about Agency 6B, life in Jersey City, Jersey, and find out all about Vix and what she does and who she's helping and how she's doing that. Vix, thanks so much for dropping by, spending your evening with me here on the show. It's been super, super valuable. Great to chat to people from other parts of the world that are doing things in different and unique and disruptive ways. So thank you so much for spending time here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you got as much out of it as I did. And thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.